Every warrior knows you don't sharpen your sword in the middle of battle. You prepare before the war ever begins. You train when the world is quiet. You master your weapon long before you are called to wield it. So why don't you train your mind the same way? Most people wait. Wait for crisis. Wait for betrayal. Wait for loss. And only then they start asking questions. Only then they try to find strength. Only then they look for clarity. But by then, the storm is already here. And an untrained mind is like a dull blade in a blood-soaked field. Useless, dangerous, deadly. Not to others, to yourself. You were born with a sword in your soul. But no one taught you how to hold it. They told you to behave, not to be bold, to conform, not to confront, to obey, not to awaken. And so you sheathed your edge. You silenced your intuition. You dulled your instincts. You chose peace over power. Not real peace. The kind of peace that costs you your fire. But beneath it all, you're still a warrior. And it's time to train like one. Because your mind is the battlefield. And every thought is a blade. If it is not honed, it will harm. If it is not aimed, it will wander. And if it is not mastered, it will turn on you. You see, the mind is not your enemy, but it is not your friend by default. It is a tool, a force, a forge. And like a blade, it must be shaped, disciplined, directed, and most importantly, respected. Because a powerful mind in the hands of an unconscious soul is no different than a sword in the hands of a child. You don't tame your thoughts by shouting over them. You train them by watching them, by sitting still in the fire until they reveal themselves. Every fear, every obsession, every voice that isn't yours, you let them rise. You don't flinch. You observe, not with judgment, with precision, because awareness is the first cut, clarity is the second, and silence, that is the final strike. The warrior doesn't react. He responds. He doesn't flail in the dark. He studies it. He sharpens his sword in solitude so he can wield it in chaos. And if you want to win this life, you must become the same. Train your mind to follow command, not compulsion, to serve your soul, not sabotage it, to kneel before vision, not fear. Let's speak truth. You've been letting your mind train you. It tells you what to fear, so you retreat. It tells you what's impossible, so you shrink. It tells you what others think, so you abandon yourself. You become a servant to an untrained sword, but no more. From this moment on, you reclaim command, and you begin the real training, not the kind that feels good, the kind that forges you. You will have to break old thought patterns like rusted chains. You will have to disarm beliefs you once worshipped. You will have to unlearn the reflex of self-doubt and replace it with the discipline of self-trust. Your mind must know who leads now. You, not your past, not your wounds, not your failures, not your fears. You. And leadership requires mastery, not of others, of yourself. The warrior doesn't seek control over the world. He seeks control over the only territory that truly matters, the kingdom of the mind, the battlefield of thought, the temple of attention, the furnace of identity. He trains not for war, but for the silence after the war, for the echo of his own integrity, for the peace that can only be earned through fire. So train your mind like a warrior trains his sword, with intention, with discipline, with unshakable purpose, because You do not rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the level of your training. And most people are dreaming of empires with the mental discipline of children. They want clarity, but they never sit in silence. They want peace, but they never confront the war inside. They want strength, but they never pick up the blade. But you are not most people, because you are still reading, still listening, still here. And that tells me you are ready. Ready to sharpen, ready to strike, ready to remember who you are. Not a victim of thought, a master of it, not a prisoner of emotion, a blacksmith of meaning, not a wanderer of identity. A sovereign soul with a blade for a mind and a fire in your chest that no fear can extinguish. Train even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because pain is the pressure that reveals uncut steel. And you are steel wrapped in skin, but only if you prove it. Every morning rise with ritual, not with distraction, not with noise, but with presence. Command your thoughts, direct your energy, sharpen your vision, not for performance, for preparation. Because when the moment comes, and it will come, the betrayal, the loss, the rejection, the chaos, you won't panic. You'll breathe, you'll assess, you'll strike, clean, clear, without hesitation, because you've been training for this, not just in body, but in mind. And that is what makes a warrior unstoppable. Not rage, not muscle, not dominance, but clarity, focus, inner stillness. The kind of silence that hums with presence, the kind of gaze that cuts deeper than any sword, the kind of man or woman who walks into a room and needs no introduction, because their mind is already sovereign. Their energy already speaks louder than words. This is not a performance. This is who you become when you stop being casual with your consciousness. So train when no one is watching. Train when the voices return. Train when the world distracts. Train when your own mind begs for comfort. And every time you refuse to betray your discipline, you sharpen your edge. You move closer to the version of you who cannot be manipulated, who cannot be silenced, who cannot be broken because they've been tempered in truth. Train until thinking becomes alignment, until choice becomes instinct, until silence becomes your sanctuary, not your prison. Because you cannot reach greatness if you are still begging for noise to distract you from the work. The real work, the work done in the dark, the mental rituals that shape the invisible architecture of who you are. That's what most people will never tell you, that the strongest warriors don't yell. They don't boast. They don't need to convince you. They embody something rare, something carved through solitude, suffering, and sacred repetition. And that's something, it can't be bought. It can't be faked. It must be forged. Because the warrior is not made in battle. He is revealed there. He is made in the quiet mornings when he rises with discipline, when he resists the pull of mediocrity, of gossip, of approval, when he chooses mastery over comfort, when he builds mental armor not to block the world out, but to remain unshaken as it moves around him. Train your mind like this, and you'll stop being reactive. You'll stop mistaking emotion for truth. You'll stop trading your peace for someone else's chaos. You'll stop negotiating your value like it's up for sale. Because suddenly you see clearly. You see through manipulation. You see the patterns before they repeat. You see the trap before it's disguised as an opportunity. You see yourself not as an imposter, but as a sovereign force who no longer seeks permission to exist. That is the mind of a warrior, not controlled by wounds, not driven by validation, but guided by vision. And what is vision? It's the ability to see what doesn't yet exist and move toward it like it already does. Vision is prophecy in motion. It is faith with feet. It is clarity so deep that distractions can't even find oxygen to survive. The average mind is scattered, trying to do everything and mastering nothing, trying to be everyone and becoming no one, trying to avoid pain and thereby living in constant anxiety. But the trained mind, it's simple, not easy simple. It doesn't need to be liked. It needs to be aligned. It doesn't chase noise. It listens for truth. It doesn't react. It responds with precision. And when the warrior sees clearly, every step becomes sacred. Every move becomes intentional. Every moment becomes a weapon against distraction. You want power? Then kill the version of you that settles. That delays. That negotiates your calling every time fear shows up in a new disguise. You don't need more time. You need more clarity. You don't need more motivation. You need more discipline. You don't need more validation. You need to validate yourself through action. Action is what sharpens the blade. And repetition is what keeps it ready. If you wait until you feel like it, you've already lost. Because your feelings are not your guide. They are your indicators. The warrior listens to his soul, not his fleeting moods. So stop looking for peace in people who are at war with themselves. Stop chasing happiness in systems designed to keep you asleep. Stop outsourcing your power to minds that are untrained and undisciplined. Take it back. Take all of it back. Stand like a blade in the storm. Still, rooted, focused. Let the chaos howl, but don't let it enter your temple. Because a trained mind is a sacred temple, and you must protect it like your life depends on it. Because it does. Everything you build, every love you attract, every door that opens, every empire that rises from your soul, all of it begins and ends with the mind. So I'll ask you again, are you sharpening it? Or are you letting it rust? Are you feeding it truth? Or starving it with distraction? Are you letting it grow wild and aimless? Or are you crafting it like a master smith with his finest blade? Because the day will come when your training is tested. And in that moment, there will be no time to prepare. There will only be the question, are you ready? Not ready to speak, not ready to prove, not ready to please, but ready to stand, ready to choose clarity over chaos, purpose over pleasure, power over passivity, ready to live from the center of your soul and not flinch when the world shakes around you. That is the edge. That is the code. That is the warrior's mind, trained not to destroy, but to transform. And when you reach that level, when your mind becomes a blade, not for cutting others, but for carving truth out of illusion, you will terrify the world that profits from your confusion. You'll walk into rooms and shift the temperature without saying a word. Because real power doesn't announce itself, it radiates. And the trained mind radiates clarity. People won't understand it. They'll mistake your calm for arrogance, your discipline for obsession, your silence for weakness. Let them. You're not here to be understood. You're here to become undeniable. This world doesn't reward truth seekers. It rewards shapeshifters. It wants you adjustable, moldable, predictable. But when your mind is trained, you are none of those things. You are rooted You are anchored. You are untouchable. Not because you fight everything, but because you don't need to. Your mind is already 10 steps ahead. Your spirit has already seen behind the mask. Your intuition doesn't beg for evidence. It leads. The untrained mind lives in reaction. The trained mind lives in strategy. One collapses at the first sign of failure. The other absorbs it, learns from it, recalibrates, and strikes again with better aim. That's the difference. The trained mind doesn't avoid pain. It assigns purpose to it. You've been lied to, told that strength is resistance. That to be powerful, you must be hardened. No, true strength is presence, not a wall, not a mask, not a performance, but an unshakable internal stillness that says, I know who I am, even if you don't. You want to be free? Then discipline your mind until it obeys your soul. And understand this, discipline isn't punishment. It's devotion. Devotion to the version of you that's waiting on the other side of every excuse, every delay, every indulgence in chaos disguised as comfort. You train because there's a kingdom inside you, and you're done letting thieves live in it rent-free. You train because your future children need a blueprint, not just bedtime stories about dreams you were too afraid to chase. You train because there's a force inside you that remembers what you were before the world told you to settle. And if you don't train, you forget. You shrink. You decay while pretending to smile. But if you do train, you remember. You remember your edge. You remember your calling. You remember that you were never meant to be domesticated. You were meant to build, to protect, to see through the fog of the world and walk into fire with grace. So now, strip away the noise, shatter the lies, stand in front of the mirror, look into your own eyes, and ask with sacred fire in your voice, what kind of mind am I building? Is it a fortress or a prison? A blade or a burden? An anchor or a chain? Because your mind is either training you for greatness or betraying you into mediocrity. There is no neutral ground. You rise or you rot. You sharpen or you dull. You lead or you follow the voices that were never yours to begin with. So start now. Not tomorrow. Not after the next failure. Not once you're motivated again. Now, because the world isn't waiting. Your potential isn't waiting. And the battlefield never sleeps. Train your mind like a warrior trains his sword. Not just to win the war, but to become the kind of soul who no longer fears it. There is something in you that terrifies the world. And it's not your ambition. It's not your success. It's not your confidence. It's your unwillingness to shrink. It's the way you no longer apologize for existing. The way you walk into a room without begging for acceptance. The way you stopped asking permission to be powerful. That is what shakes people. Because most of the world doesn't fear your weakness, they fear your clarity. Clarity exposes what they've buried. Conviction exposes what they've compromised. Your very presence becomes a mirror, and when they look into it, they don't see you, they see what they could have been if they hadn't sold themselves so cheap. You're not too much. You are the result of someone who refused to remain less. And when you carry that truth in your bones, the world will try to convince you that you're arrogant, too bold, too loud, too intense. But what they really mean is, you are reminding me of everything I abandoned in myself. There's a reason most people stay average. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack time, but because they're afraid of what they lose if they fully commit to becoming who they are. Because the moment you commit, really commit, you become a threat. a threat to the friend group that bonded over mediocrity, a threat to the partner who fell in love with your potential but fears your actual power, a threat to the family who only knew how to love the version of you that stayed quiet and manageable. Greatness always demands a price. It doesn't let you blend in. It doesn't let you hide behind small talk and social masks. It rips the comfort out of your mouth and replaces it with command. That's why they back away. That's why they call you intense. That's why they whisper behind your back. Because you didn't ask to lead, but you are. And leadership, when embodied with truth, breaks the trance most people have built their entire lives around. Psyphoria is what happens when your soul becomes louder than your fear. It's not a mood. It's not a phase. It's the uprising of the part of you that refused to stay buried. You feel it first as a quiet ache, a hunger that doesn't have language yet, a restlessness that your career can't soothe, a burning that no relationship can fill. And then, one day, it erupts. You wake up and realize this life, this performance, this pretending, this negotiating your fire for crumbs of approval, this is not living. And from that moment forward, you're not the same. You stop trying to be understood. You stop trying to explain. You stop trying to shrink into digestible pieces just to be tolerated. You start walking like someone who remembers they were never here to be liked. You were here to shake the ground with your presence. Mindset isn't about repeating positive thoughts. It's about deprogramming the beliefs that kept you on your knees. Who told you to be humble meant to be invisible? Who told you dreaming big made you selfish? Who told you discipline was toxic? That wanting more was greedy, that self-trust was arrogance? That wasn't your voice. That was inherited shame. That was generational fear. That was the voice of a society that celebrates conformity and punishes sovereignty. But when the mind awakens, truly awakens, it starts burning through every illusion that once made you small. You begin to question everything. Why do I say yes when I mean no? Why do I keep friendships that drain me? Why do I smile when I want to scream? And beneath each question, a deeper truth begins to rise. Not the truth they gave you, the truth you are. And once it rises, you can't go back. You can't unsee your potential. You can't unknow your strength. You can't pretend your soul is asleep when it's howling with clarity. Belief is not comfort. Belief is war. It is the war between who you've been and who you know you could become. And it doesn't happen once. Every day you must wake up and choose to believe in the self that's still under construction. The self they haven't met yet. The self you're still learning to trust. But belief becomes power the moment you stop waiting for others to approve it. Because most people want to believe in you after it's obvious. They want to celebrate you after it's safe. But your soul demands something greater. Believe before the results. Act before the evidence. Stand before the crowd arrives. Because belief isn't meant to follow. It's meant to lead. And when you lead with belief, you will lose people. But you will find yourself. Clarity makes you dangerous. It's not about being right. It's about being undeniable. The world doesn't need more opinions. It needs more people who know exactly who they are and refuse to negotiate with noise. Clarity says, I know what I want. I know what I'm here to build, and I will not dilute that for your comfort. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It moves. And when you move with clarity, you become unshakable. Because the ones who can't be swayed by external chaos, they become the anchors in the storm. People sense it. They can't describe it. They just feel safer when you walk into the room. Because you're not wondering who you are. You are. Vision is not fantasy. It is not a daydream scribbled in the margins of your schedule. It is not a mood board. It is not a trend. Vision is the soul's architecture downloaded in silence, constructed in solitude, defended in fire. It's what you saw before the world told you what was realistic. It's what you felt in the marrow of your being before anyone gave you permission to feel it. You don't create vision, you remember it. You remember the version of you that knew this life was meant for more than submission, repetition, and quiet desperation disguised as success. And when that vision grips you, really grips you, you stop waiting. You stop waiting for clarity from people who've never been clear. You stop waiting for direction from people who've never moved. You stop waiting for applause from a crowd that fears their own greatness. Because the moment vision takes hold, hesitation dies. You move different. You speak different. You see different. You don't just chase goals, you build realities. Purpose is not found in a book. It's not given to you by a mentor. It's not granted by society, by title, by recognition. Purpose is found in the place where pain meets refusal. Refusal to repeat the cycle. Refusal to stay asleep. Refusal to hand your life over to systems built to drain you. Purpose isn't something you find. It's something you choose over and over again. And it requires sacrifice. You will lose people who loved your old version. You will lose comfort. You will lose the ability to blend in. But in that loss, you will become a light that cannot be ignored, the kind of person who walks with such intention that others feel convicted in your presence. Not because you preach, but because you embody what they were too afraid to become. You don't have to convince when you're living with purpose. You don't have to explain, because your life speaks louder than your words ever could. Discipline is the gatekeeper of destiny. It's not about restriction. It's not about self-punishment. It's about respect. Respect for the future you. Respect for the vision you carry. Respect for the responsibility of being awake in a sleeping world. Discipline says, I don't need to feel like it. I don't need perfect conditions. I don't need external motivation. I have chosen myself, and that is enough. And that's what most people don't understand. They want results without structure. They want legacy without labor. They want freedom without the fire. But freedom is not given. It's earned through the daily decision to remember who you are. And every time you keep your promise to yourself, every time you act in alignment, every time you refuse to betray your vision for momentary comfort, you become something unstoppable. Not because of what you did, but because of who you became doing it. Adaptability is not weakness. It is the mark of the elite. The average cling to identity like armor, terrified of shedding what no longer fits. But you evolve in silence and emerge unrecognizable. You are not the same person you were 6 months ago. Not because you changed, but because you remembered more of who you are. You shed the need to be right. You shed the desire to be understood. You shed the version of yourself that was built in reaction to fear. And now, you no longer need the world to adjust for you. You adjust for nothing and no one except your soul's direction. That is power. The kind of power that moves mountains without noise. The kind of power that speaks without words. The kind of power that terrifies the people still addicted to predictability. Because you're not static. You're not stagnant. You're not safe. You are becoming constantly, consciously, unapologetically. Identity is not a costume. It is not a name tag you wear at parties. It is not your job title, your followers, your personality type, or your history. It is the core frequency of who you are when no one is watching and nothing needs to be proven. But most people never meet themselves. They meet a version of them shaped by fear crafted in the shadows of other people's expectations, refined by trauma, hardened by survival. They say, this is who I am. But what they really mean is, this is who I became, so I wouldn't be hurt again. But that is not identity. That is armor. And armor may protect you, but it also prevents you from feeling, prevents you from flying, prevents you from loving so deeply that nothing remains hidden. Because to truly know yourself, to truly become yourself, you must be willing to burn the old script. The one where you were small, the one where you were acceptable, the one where you were everything they needed you to be, and nothing you really were. Identity is not fixed. It is forged, forged in fire, forged in silence, forged in the sacred act of saying, no more lies. I'd rather be alone in truth than worshipped in delusion. And when you reach that point, when your old identity no longer fits, and your new one hasn't fully formed, that's the revolution. Not the outer one, the inner revolt. It's not loud. It doesn't always look like glory. Sometimes it looks like crying on the floor at 3 a.m. Sometimes it looks like quitting a life you built just to survive. Sometimes it looks like walking away from people who loved your mask more than your truth. But underneath all that is freedom. Freedom from the lies. Freedom from the performance. Freedom from being the version of you that never scared anyone because it never told the truth. Greatness is lonely at first, because your presence will start to agitate the people who built their lives in fear. Your clarity will disturb their confusion. Your confidence will offend their self-abandonment. They won't say it, but they'll distance themselves. They'll say you've changed, and you have. You stopped apologizing for your light. You stopped hiding the fire inside you just so others could feel warm in their numbness. You stopped shrinking, and in doing so, you became a lighthouse. Not everyone wants the light, but those who are ready, they'll find you. This is why your greatness scares people, because it cannot be controlled, because it doesn't beg, because it makes them question everything they settled for. But you didn't come here to be understood. You came here to become. You came here to remember. Remember the strength they told you to tame, the vision they told you to downplay, the voice they told you to quiet. You came here to break the cycle, not fit inside it. And the moment you truly remember that, there is no going back. You won't lower your standards just to be included. You won't make yourself smaller just to be digestible. You won't hide your truth just to be tolerated. You will walk, head high, heart open, spine unbent. And when they ask why you no longer play by the rules, you smile, because you finally realized the game was never built for your greatness anyway. And now, you don't need the crown. You are the kingdom. You don't need the throne. You became the fire. You don't need their approval. You embody your own authority. And from this moment forward, no one gets to define you again, because you have remembered the truth. You were never meant to fit in. You were built to lead the way out. And this is the moment you stop waiting. You stop waiting for signs, for validation, for the stars to align, for the timing to be perfect, for someone to say, now you're ready. You realize no one is coming to crown you, because the throne you were waiting for was never theirs to give. You were the authority all along. You were the permission. You were the arrival. You were the prophecy buried beneath your own hesitation. This is not motivation. This is remembrance. A sacred revolt against every internalized voice that said, stay small. A refusal to inherit limitations just because they were spoken by people you loved. A burning of every false identity that made your soul flinch. This is not about reaching a destination. This is about reclaiming your design. You weren't built for the shallow. You weren't built to live in the realm of surface-level affirmation and empty rituals of belonging. You were built for depth, for disruption, for transcendence. And those who fear the unknown will always fear you because you became it. You embodied the very thing they were taught to avoid. The raw, relentless, unapologetic truth of being fully awake. So yes, your greatness will scare people. It will scare the ones who traded their dreams for comfort. It will scare the ones who measure life by metrics, not meaning. It will scare the ones who confuse safety with stagnation. It will scare the ones who fear anything they can't control. But let it. Let them fear. Let them question. Let them keep their shallow waters while you dive into oceans most people never touch. Because you're not here to be palatable. You're here to be free. And freedom has never been quiet. It has never been convenient. It has never asked for applause. It has always looked like fire burning down the illusions so something real can rise in their place. And now you rise. Not because you feel ready, but because readiness is a myth for people still trying to be liked. You rise because the cost of staying small has become unbearable. You rise because the silence between who you are and who you were pretending to be is now deafening. You rise because greatness is not something you chase, it's something you finally stop resisting. And when you rise, you don't carry your old story. You bury it. You lay it down like the skin you outgrew. You thank it for its protection, and you walk away. Because the world does not need another agreeable, predictable, performance-trained shell of a person. It needs you, the real you, the raw you, the terrifying, electric, divine force of nature that remembers where it came from. You are not here to explain yourself. You are here to express yourself. You are not here to be tolerated. You are here to be witnessed. You are not here to blend in with the noise. You are here to be the signal. So breathe, let the old burn. Let the false identities dissolve. Let the fear scream one last time before it falls silent. Because what's rising in you now? It's not ego. It's not image. It's not bravado. It's truth. It's clarity. It's sovereignty. And no one, no system, no rejection, no doubt, no storm will ever take that from you again. This is why your greatness scares them. Because it doesn't ask. It becomes, and now, so do you?